Folks, it's time to talk about Derek's favorite subject.
Andre Drummond!
Yes, indeed. We're live from the Xfinity Lounge, presented by our good friends from Rothman Orthopedics and Ford. Derek, Kyle, Devon, Bree, we're here with you, and we need to talk about the backup center minutes. We've discussed the starters, who could be in those starting spots, should some others who's battling for the fourth and fifth starting spot. But we do need to talk about the backup 5 minutes. A year ago, we discussed those, thinking that we knew Joel Embiid because of what the Sixers told us. He was going to be out, not playing back-to-backs. He was going to miss some time here and there. They gave Andre Drummond a 2-year contract, decent money, to be that primary backup. But he now has a challenger, Derek, and it's by second-year man, Adem Bona, who did show us some things towards the end of the season. The games weren't as meaningful, but getting those minutes certainly means something. Just finishing up FIBA play for Turkey. Mm-hmm. How do you see this one as we get ready for the start of Media Day and training camp? How do you see this one starting out and shaping up?
Yeah, and look, we did sort of like 2 shows earlier this week about starting spots. We had the power forward spot where we all came to the agreement that Paul George would start. We had the other, perimeter spot, and that could be Kelly, that could be VJ, that could be Jared, it could be a whole host of people. This is almost like a 6th starting spot because even though obviously neither one of these are beating a healthy Joel Embiid in the starting lineup, as we all know, Joel is not a guarantee to be in that starting lineup for 82 games. So this player,
health issues for Joel, those never happen.
Player could start a significant number of games. And look, I think there's 2 questions. There's which way Nick Nurse might go, and there's which way we would go. I saw so much negative stuff from Andre Drummond last year that if
negative stuff. That's a nice way of putting it.
Poor play. Where if Adem Bona is even in the same area code coming into camp or coming out of camp, going into the preseason, going into the regular season, I give the spot to the young kid. I give the spot to the guy who's going to give you energy each and every night. I give the spot to the guy who looks like he's on an upward trajectory, and we saw significant improvement throughout the course of last year. And I frankly just give the spot to the guy who has a chance to be with the organization for the foreseeable future, not the guy who's probably in his last year with the Sixers. I think they will be close in terms of their performance, unless Andre Drummond really was just the foot issue last year that was holding him back. If he's anywhere close to where he was last year, this should be a close race. I would go with Adem Bona. But will Nick Nurse go with Adem Bona?
And that's where I think all of us are skeptical initially, right? Because when you signed Drummond last year, I think that was almost literally the first move, right? As the first thing that was reported that they were doing was the Andre Drummond signing previous offseason. Mm-hmm. It was very early at the least.
Yeah.
And they were excited about him. And obviously last year was a disaster for him on multiple fronts. When he was briefly healthy, he wasn't any good. Then he just wasn't healthy, and he'd get like 1 game under his belt, and now it's another thing. And to some extent, you give him credit for trying to play through stuff, right? He still ended up playing 40 games, and that's with the end of the year where all the veteran guys are sitting. So he tried to gut it out and play through foot and toe and other issues. But it just ended up leading to a terrible season, right? And Drummond was coming off of a 2-year stretch where he had really figured out like an impact backup role, playing behind Vucevic in Chicago. We obviously saw him a previous time in Philadelphia where he had carved out a nice lane in that backup role. And so I do think, although there's plenty of reporting out there, plenty of intel out there that they were ready to move on from him this summer, depending on if they could have moved him for cap space or moved him for anything, right? That they like Bona. They're encouraged by Bona's growth last year. And I think all of us would prefer to see Adem Bona. But I do think he has to win that job decisively, because if he does not, I think Nick Nurse, like most other coaches, are going to be inclined to go to the guy with the resume, the guy who they made a priority target in free agency last year, and say, at least initially, we believed in you last year. We still believe in you a little bit. We're going to give you that first crack to be the spot starter and primary backup to Joel. But you got to have a short leash on him, right? It can't just be, hey, he gets the first 20 games of the season, that spot is his, right? He is nowhere near as good as he used to be able to just command that spot. And I'm hopeful for Bona. I'm hopeful that what we saw last year in offensive progress, the valuable international experience he got with Turkey this summer in Eurobasket, I hope all those things converge and he can just grab a job right from the get-go. I'm just skeptical that that's where Nick Nurse goes.
Of those 40 games that Andre Drummond played, 23 starting, 7 and 7 basically at 7 points and 7 rebounds during his time with the Sixers a season ago. Adem Bona, 58 games played, 11 started, 5.8 points and 4.2 rebounds on the season. And we saw a really, really good stretch there at the end where he got those starts and he performed pretty decently out there. And while the games didn't matter as much, he did some things that we liked. Now, we also saw him in Summer League where we liked some things again, and we didn't like some things from Adem Bona in Summer League. Got some international play. Not a lot of minutes there, but
Şengün's the guy there.
Absolutely. He got some run. He's continued to play, and he's continued to just get out there, learn more, being around more pros, and figuring out the professional game. He is going to have to earn that, though, because while Andre Drummond makes his mistakes that will drive you as a fan crazy, Adem Bona will do the same thing. And if it's going to drive you crazy, drive us crazy, it's going to drive the coach crazy. And that's where he will lean to the veteran guy, where he feels like he can trust a little bit more. We know that when we talk about a man at the 5 spot, you have to be able to rebound. Far too many times we saw Adem Bona on the floor a season ago with decent minutes, a good number, but didn't rebound well enough at that 5 spot. The foul trouble issues as well. If there's one thing we do know about Andre Drummond is he will grab a rebound and give you an opportunity to get that offensive possession going the other way. There are some things that we all know that we've seen for years that can have you pulling your hair out, but the sure thing is secure that rebound and not give up those offensive opportunities. And that is where Adem Bona has to get better, not biting on those shot fakes, not being too overly aggressive where he's jumpy, and again, getting those rebounds, understanding where he is. But there are those encouraging things that we saw offensively too. The fake dribble handoff where teams were falling for it, and he was going to the rim and he was finishing. Defensively, cleaning up those block shots where he did time it properly and got up there and made them either change the shot or he actually blocked the shot and kept it in play and gave them an opportunity to secure that basketball, get out there and transition. So a lot to like from both of them. Andre Drummond is not going to go quietly, I don't think, either. He is a prideful guy. He know what happened the season
And now
ago.
he's on an expiring contract.
And now he's on an expiring contract of $5 million on this final year. And he is going to go out there and battle that kid for those minutes behind Joel Embiid and those starting spots as well when Joel Embiid does not play. So it's going to be an interesting one as we focus on some of these storylines going into camp.
Just a couple of quick numbers to illustrate how much of a step back Andre Drummond took last year. It was the second least efficient scoring season of his career. It was his third worst rebounding season of his career by rebounding rate. It was his worst rim protection season of his career. The Sixers had a negative 16.2 net rating when he was on the floor, which in contrast, like Adem Bona had a negative 6.6, which was right around what the Sixers were as a team. Now, obviously, there's a lot of garbage lineups that both of them played with, but it's not like Bona was playing during a time in the season when they really had their best players on the floor either. And in all of the all-in-one stats, box plus minus, value over replacement player, win shares per minute, it was the worst season of Andre Drummond's career. Now, I say it was like the third worst rebounding season of his career. He was still a orders of magnitude better defensive rebounder than Adem Bona was, and frankly, than most centers were. He's still one of the best rebounding centers in the league, but when you take a significant step back like that, all of your other flaws, that rebounding was sort of what helped cover up some of the other flaws in his game, or at least made you more willing to live with those other flaws. He needs to get back to being a truly, truly, truly dominant rebounder on both sides of the floor. He was still very, very good, especially defensively. Like the biggest jump back came on the offensive side of the floor, but he needs to get back to really asserting himself because he's not getting any more fleet of foot. He's not really going to get any more skilled offensively. He is who he is. He needs to be truly dominant, not just better than Bona to win that spot.
And one of the most encouraging things for Adem is that we have fewer offensive questions about him after last year, right? I think he had all the usual young, big quirks, right? He fouls a lot. He's still figuring out the rebounding, with his frame and his size That's to be expected, I think, right? But then you pair that with, hey, I don't know what this guy can do other than finish a lob offensively, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing him able to put the ball on the floor a little bit, show more comfort in dribble handoffs, and just like doing more things than maybe he showed at UCLA. That's a meaningful step forward, right? Because as a finisher, he's great. He made 70.3% of his shots last year. I know they're all around the rim and you need him to shoot a high percentage because of that, but he can do that. He is a dynamic lob target, if nothing else. And when you have all these young guards who can potentially set him up, that's great. When you can run the floor, and that's another one of his advantages compared to Drummond, he can keep up with those guys, right? He can run with VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. And so if Maxey comes down the lane with the ball and two guys collapse on him, you got Bona trailing and he's going to flush it on those guys, right? So he can be part of a real identity that backup units create, or even starting groups create potentially if he ends up in that spot starter role. So I think all of us are, we're not going crazy over Adem Bona, but I think we're all cautiously optimistic about his future. And the hope would be that he comes into camp and it's just right away like, oh, he's taken a step forward. Like we can tell from the international play and any kind of trainer work he did that this guy's ready for a bigger role. That's the hope, but we'll have to wait and see.
Let's not forget about those 3-point shots that Adem Bona may take.
I think we're still and one quick thing, like I don't expect Nick Nurse has a lot of tolerance for it, but he is athletic enough that he could defend fours, right? Offensively, playing him next to Joel Embiid is not the way I want to set up a team. But if you just want to throw out some big and athletic defensive lineups at times, maybe we see that, and that gives him even a little bit more of a path to, if it's a couple minutes here and there, to try that out. I wouldn't be opposed to, Joel won't play the preseason, so you can't do it then. But just seeing a little bit of that throughout the year.
Yeah, they were talking about Embiid Drummond lineups. Why not Embiid Bona lineups as well? All right, folks. That'll do it for us here on this particular podcast here. And we thank everybody for watching. Make sure you go like and subscribe to the show. And we'll talk to you next week.